Hello and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Chris McKinney from Nolan Financial Group. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 719-210-4242 or visit us online at terrynolan.com. So while you're at our website, click on the radio page, check out our past shows, and subscribe to our program on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions or set up a face-to-face meeting. So even if you generally love your job and enjoy the work that you do, you enjoy the people you work with, it's only natural to occasionally lean back in your chair, close your eyes, and daydream for a few moments about retirement. I know I have. So no more alarm clocks, no more time clocks, no more checking the dashboard clock during yet another long commute. So after a little bit of retirement daydreaming, most folks happily go back to work. But some who can't shake those retirement dreams begin plotting their post-work life. So if you're in your 50s like me, which is generally about a decade before the typical retirement age for most folks, leaving your career behind means you're entering the world of early retirement, which is full of both possibility and the unknown. With that in mind, today's show, we're going to discuss some of the potentially critical things you need to know if you're considering early retirement. But before we start chatting about early retirement, let me introduce my co-host, Tony Shore, who I certainly hope isn't retiring and leaving our show anytime soon.
Oh, Chris, you wish. And no retirement plans yet. You're stuck with me. So that's quite the intro. But you said in your 50s, you don't look a day over 40, Chris.
Oh, yeah, right. Thank you so much. Come on. I got some gray going on here.
Well,
buddy.
you got the...
It's starting to recede a little.
Yeah, you got the gray, but people can go gray in their 30s. That's just the gray. The gray is not an indicator. You look like you're about 40. So that's good. But great to be here with you. Tara, after working 24/7 on that book, needed a little break, and I thought, hey, it'd be fun if you and I did a show together, right?
Yeah. I think this is going to be great, Tony. So yeah, Tara has been working so hard on that book to get it out to the editors, so we can make a great book for people they can pick up the book and then have something to go with.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I know it's going to be great. I've talked to Tara quite a bit about it and the contents, and I know you've been helping her out with it. And I think that's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to reading it. And, I know a lot about it already. I feel like I know it, but I can't wait to actually read the final book, hold it in our hands, and our listeners will be able to as well. I know they're going to make it available on Amazon and via, the website and things. So that's going to be awesome. Now, this show today, Retiring Early, like I joked, but I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon. As long as my voice holds out, I want to be doing this show. Why would I retire from something I love so much? That's my thing.
That's exactly where I'm at too, is I love doing, meeting with people, meeting with clients and figuring out what their puzzle is, to help them get to where they are dreaming to be. And when that light clicks on and they see that they're going to retire and they're going to have what they want in retirement, that is such a special feeling for me to be able to help people like that. I can't tell you when somebody first walks in, I have to really hold myself back because I have all these great ideas on how I can help them, and I don't want to overwhelm them with information.
Well, Chris, and I know you've been meeting with a lot of folks and listeners and talking to them, and I do see the passion, and it's fun to be able to help people and see them, the burden lifted, knowing they have that financial plan in place. And really, what we're all working toward is retirement. We're all either in our working years or in retirement or headed there. So, and it's really a new beginning. It's not the end of anything. It's a new beginning, and it's fun to plan for. So there are those, I'm sure, that have come to you. I know you and Tara have helped people retire early, and some people want to retire early. As people live longer, I think people are I think less people probably retire early depending on their situation. But some of our listeners out there might be thinking, hey, I'd like to retire by the time I'm 60. And really, that is quite a bit early comparatively to what a lot of people are doing, or even in their 50s. But it all depends, right? I mean, this topic is particularly good because I think it's easy for people to say to themselves, hey, I got enough money put away, I can retire. But I know that from things you've said, about responsibility and the unknowns that come along, it's not as simple as having enough money in the bank, is it, Chris?
That's exactly right, Tony. And today's shows certainly isn't intended to talk anyone out of retiring early. So we're gonna talk about a lot of the pitfalls, but I'm not trying to talk you out of it. It's only intended to encourage you to think about early retirement as broadly as possible. So we went to a recent AARP article, 10 things no one tells you about early retirement. So really has some great information. Check it out. We're going to talk about some of the things here today, but not all of them. Okay. So as the article talks about, though, many people dream about retiring early. A mere 11% of current workers under the age of 60 say they plan to retire early. Though I'm eager to see some statistics several months from now that may tell us if the COVID-19 pandemic led to a surge in early retirements.
Yeah.
Once you start working from home, it's like, I kind of like
it. You get the bug. Yeah, you get the bug. Man.
I don't have to drive to work anymore. Yeah. Oh, man.
That's huge. That is huge.
So I live in an easy place to commute in, but I know you live in a big town, so I just can't imagine getting into that traffic flow every morning. Yeah,
they want us to start working from the studio starting next week, so we'll see how that goes. Because as you can see, I'm in my home studio now, and I love it. Like between shows, I just turn over here, and I have my record player. I put on an album and upload shows and do editing and mixing. So, yeah, it's a lot more fun working from home. I get more done, actually, less distractions, and I don't have that commute. So, I think a lot of people are going to look at retiring early if their company says come back to work. And they're in that age range between 55 and 65. They might say, hey, in fact, my neighbor's already doing that. That's what he did. He's like, I'm not coming back. So I think you're right.
Yeah. So it's really going to be a big change in how many people really are going back to work, and what's our country going to do for all that production. How is that going to affect taxes and all kinds of, there's some really big impacts on the horizon. How is that going to affect healthcare? And so that's the next thing we're going to talk about, because healthcare is super expensive, and you already know that. But once you leave your company, all that healthcare falls to you, and Medicare doesn't kick in till you're 65. So, for most cases anyway. So, but if you retire early, so you're going to need to find a healthcare bridge that gets you to Medicare, and that bridge could be pretty expensive. So, Tony, I lost you there. I'm not sure I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Let me redo that. Sorry, Chris. Well, I was just saying, I think I just heard my wallet scream in terror. Every time you mention the word healthcare, my wallet just screams in terror. It's so expensive, right?
Oh, right. It really is. So healthcare is one of the really not cheap things that is part of our retirement. So while current law dictates that your health insurance premiums can exceed 8.3% of your household income, that's still a lot of money, 8.3% of your household income. Say your household income in retirement is 50,000. A mid-level silver plan will run you about $346 a month. So that's $4,150 annually. That's a big bite out of that Apple retirement, right? That retirement you have. So mid-level plan isn't going to cover everything you need as well. So you got to make sure that you hold some savings back so that you can cover anything that comes in extra. And I can tell you that there's all kinds of things that happen to you after you retire because you're getting older.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, if early retirement is a possibility, Chris, I mean, you have to make sure that your healthcare is squared away and it's going to come at a price that you can afford. That's obviously the most important thing you can do. And to do that, you need to work with a financial services professional, like yourself. And you don't want to dig too deep into that nest egg to cover an early retirement or to cover healthcare in retirement.
Right. And so speaking of the nest eggs, Tony, rating yours too early can have a lot of financial consequences. Let's run through some of the consequences real quick. So if you leave your office for the last time before you turn 59 and a half, so you're retiring early before 59 and a half, you could get hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty from those tax deferred accounts like 401ks, traditional IRAs. While there are some ways you may be able to get IRA money out before you're 59 and a half, doing so incorrectly can lead to significant penalties. So if you don't have a Roth IRA, which is funded with after-tax dollars, you'll owe Uncle Sam a portion of the amount you take out of those traditional accounts. So in terms of dollars and cents, that means if you take $20,000 out of your IRA before 59 and a half, and you are in the 15% federal income tax bracket, you may be left with as little as $15,000 of that $20,000 after you consider potential taxes and the fees.
That's crazy. I mean, I would have to think that paying $5,000 right off the top is going to be pretty unappetizing for people out there. So I think you have to solidify, you've been talking about, you have to solidify a workable healthcare plan that's going to ensure you have enough cash to avoid tapping into those retirement accounts for that, and the penalties and taxes by starting to take money out of those accounts. That's another reason. Those are two big reasons to absolutely work with a financial services professional, especially if you're going to retire early. But if you're going to retire at all, those are things you need to deal with and have a plan in place. But retiring early just makes it that much more important. Now, I think, Chris, you've said this before, retirement is tricky, and that's why you need to work with somebody who's there to tell you what you need to hear. That's what I love about you and Tara, Chris. You're there to tell your clients and our listeners what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear, right? Maybe they want to retire early, but what you're going to tell them is they can't. Or maybe you're going to tell them, yes, you can retire early at this point. And they're like, no, I can't do that. And you're like, yes, you're there to tell them the facts and what they can do. And I think that's really, really helpful. Now, before we move on, Chris, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you and set up that appointment.
Well, today's listeners, you can go out to our website at terrynolan.com. Check us out there. Or you can call our office at 719-210-4242 and discuss how our team might be able to help you answer your questions, address your concerns about path to retirement, maybe even early retirement. We've set aside some complimentary consultations to the listeners of the radio program today. So call in today to get that complimentary consultation set up. We'll meet with you and answer your questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, it's been a really good show so far, Chris. You've been talking about some things we need to be aware of before we make that final decision about early retirement. And ultimately, I mean, early retirement brings with it possibilities that are exciting and problematic, of course. So you have to be fully informed. And I think it's been a good one. What do you have for us next?
So we're going to go back to that AARP article, the 10 things no one tells you about in early retirement. Next emphasizes that by retiring early, you may be giving up some of the benefits of compounding interest. Okay. So when it comes to saving money, time itself is our greatest ally. So if you're between the ages of 25 and 55, and you save $250 a month or $3,000 a year, you'll have about $237,000 when you retire, as long as you don't make any withdrawals and earn an average of 6% annually on those investments. Clearly, that's a pretty good return on $90,000.
Yeah, okay. But I'm on to you, Chris. I know there's a but in there somewhere.
Right,
Right?
you are, Tony. So let's say you retire at 65 rather than 55.
Mhm.
So this gets a little better. You're giving yourself another 10 years of compounding. So me as a financial professional are going to make sure you're aware of those things. That's what we do. We make sure you're aware of your options and where you are at with those things. So in that case of the $250 a month, that would leave you with those extra 10 years about $464,000. That's nearly double what you would have had at age 55. So why is that? So an extra decade of savings will add $30,000 to your pot. So the real power comes from the interest you're going to earn. That interest will be $197,000 over those extra 10 years. Not just on the principal, but the interest that you're making, because you're making interest on the interest, right?
Wow. Yeah, compounding interest is huge. I mean, and the impact it can have. We've talked about that on past shows, and I know you and Tara always talk about that. And I know what compounding interest is, but every time I hear concrete numbers like that, Chris, amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a powerful tool, isn't it?
Sure, it sure is.
Yeah.
So the next critical thing we want to talk about in our early retirement is that you may have a long life still ahead of you. So as the article talks about, a woman who retires at age 55 will need her savings to last nearly 29 years on average. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So, and when you contrast that with retiring at 65, that's only 20 and a half years. So that's a huge difference. So a man who retires at 55 will need his savings to last about 25 years on average, rather than just the 18 years he would need if he retired at 65. So that's just a lot more money we have to pile up and account for. Okay. So here's a stat that really knocked your socks off. If a couple makes it to 65, there's a 25% chance that one of the spouses will live to age 98. How
Wow.
crazy is that?
Yeah. Longevity. People are living longer and longer. That's you have to plan for that too. And I think most people would love a long retirement, Chris, but it gives you, because it gives you all that much more time to spend with family and travel, things like that. But that longer lifespan is also going to mean you need plenty of money, that much more money, right?
Right. So you got it down to brass tacks right there, Tony. You're going to need a lot more money if you retire early. It's a different plan. So and then we're living longer because we have better health care than our parents. My parents live longer than their parents. I'm probably going to live longer than my parents. That's kind of how it happens. And then you're likely going to spend more money in retirement than you would have predicted. And then if you retire early, because you're going to be doing more things. Okay.
Yes.
So you're more active. You're going to want to travel more. You're going to want to do more of the things you do in retirement. So you're going to spend more money maybe than you originally thought if you retire early. So many service professionals advise their clients that they'll spend about 80% as much in retirement as they did when they're still working. I'm not sure I fully subscribe to that because of the additional cost of what you are going to be doing in retirement. Are what you do in retirement, is it going to be spending money, or is it going to be sitting around watching Netflix all the time, right? you're gonna want to do stuff. Right. Netflix, you'll run through it in about a week.
Yeah.
So and then
you'll burn out on that quick.
You'll burn out that super quick. And the other part is you'll no longer be funneling money into your retirement account. So now you won't be covering commuting expenses. You won't be paying Social Security payroll taxes because you're not going to have payroll, right? So there's no payroll taxes on that earned income. So it's not really that bad advice, but there's a lot of nuances you really should consider. So early in that retirement, it's common for retirees to see a spending surge on things like travel, home improvements, relation costs, and other lifestyle changes. I had one client, he went down to Lowe's and he bought every power tool they had. I'm talking about hand power tools. I'm talking about table saws and chop saws, big stuff. He was going to get involved in carpentry and building cabinets and doing things. He didn't do it, but he wanted to, and he started, and then he's just like, it's not that much fun.
Right. Yeah. That happens. It happens to the best of us, but it is neat. You got to try these things. And, and talking about home improvement projects, it seems to me that if early retirement is in your cards, you have to have a housing strategy as well, right?
Yeah. Retiring without a mortgage is a goal for a lot of our clients, and it's certainly a big challenge. So according to that article from AARP, 44% of retired homeowners between the ages of 60 and 70 still have a mortgage. And I've had some clients that actually refi their home in their early 60s right before they retired, which, we're not going to discuss the pros and cons of that here today. But even if your mortgage does go away, the expenses that come with home ownership don't. So in 2020, the average homeowner paid just over $3,700 in property taxes, a 4.4% jump from what they paid in 2019. I can tell you, with what's going on in the housing market, home prices are skyrocketing across the country. Okay, so those property taxes are going to continue to go up. I live in the Front Range of Colorado. People in Denver that are living on fixed incomes are selling their homes and moving south on the Front Range to get into property taxes they can afford. They may have paid off their home, but they can't afford the rising property taxes. So it's something we have to consider when we're in retirement. The other thing that we need to make sure we account for is replacement and repairs on those homes. And they recommend that we save about 1% of the home's purchase price to cover replacement repairs. So if you got a $350,000 home, that's $3,500 a year. You can see how that these things can start to really add up on the cost of our retirement, even though we've paid off our note.
Yeah. I mean, in financial strategies for your home, Chris, whether it's paying off your mortgage before retirement, like you mentioned, or downsizing, a lot of people downsize to a smaller or less expensive home after they retire. That's a good reason right there to also be working with yourself and Tara, a financial services professional, to get that strategy just right. And really, a strategy for your living and your house is a linchpin of a successful retirement and should be part of the overall retirement strategy, just like, especially if you're going to retire early, right?
That's right, Tony. So I really agree with you on that one. You got to consider where you're going to be finding that extra income after you retired to cover all those things. So that article talks about 70%, 4% of workers intend to keep earning some type of paycheck after they retire, which we feel is great because it gives you a purpose, gives you a reason to get up and out of bed in the morning. I can tell you my dad retired a couple of times at 52, and he got bored with it and went back to work. And then he retired again at 62. And then he got bored with it after a year, went back to work again for a couple of years.
We hear that a lot. I mean, you see that a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, so my mom was still working. So how was he going to spend his time? You know, they couldn't go do traveling because she was busy. So it's just kind of how that works.
Sure.
But yeah, ultimately people need to come in and work with a financial services professional.
Yep.
And create a strategy that will provide all that retirement income, so that if they do work part-time, they are applying that the right way. Hopefully if we get the right strategy and they don't want to work part-time, it won't be necessary at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just have a couple of minutes left here. So let's, yeah. So, but, Chris, let's talk about that. It isn't all about the financial aspect, retiring early. It's also about what you're going to do with all that time, especially if you retire early. And we've talked about this before too. I know you're always talking about this, Chris, with the people you meet with. You talk to me about this. You have to have a plan on what you're going to do in retirement. And that's why we see a lot of people go back to work because they didn't really plan on, they have to fill that 40 hours a week that they spent working. Or in Tara's case, the 70 hours a week she spends working. Right?
That's right.
Right. Am I right? A little delay on that one. But
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm glad, isn't that true though?
Yeah, it's very true. So I recently sat down with some clients. He works kind of blue collar guy, and he's going to open up a handyman business after he retires. But he's going to work for himself. So he's going to have his own, manage his own time. If he only works 4 hours a day, he'll be happy with that, right? He'll make a little extra income, and he'll have something to keep him busy during the day. His wife is a teacher. Well, she's planning on having a retirement, and teachers get good pensions from the state, so she'll have money. But she's already got a plan to. She loves to bake, right? So she's already got a plan to start a cookie company, and she makes the most beautiful cookies. Wow! Wonderful. You can't imagine these cookies. So once she gets that kicked off, she's going to have that. So we've helped them set up business plans. We've helped them set up how everything's going to flow, how much they can put into their business so that they can have these. I like to call them worm farms. So what's your worm farm, right?
Sure.
What's the thing you're going to do after you retire that keeps you doing a little bit, but not too much, only when you have to, right? That's kind of like a worm farm. You only have to go out and feed the worms like every 3 days. Okay. That's how worms work. And then all you do is once a while, you gather the worms and take them down to a bait shop and stick them on a shelf, and people buy them. It's not a lot of work, but it's something to do. And it's going to be something that makes you a little bit of money.
I like that analogy. A worm farm.
Worm farm.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I tell you what, we're out of time for today's show. But before we go, Chris, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you.
You can reach us at our website at taraenolan.com. And you can also give us a call at 719-210-4242. Give us a call today. We'll set up a complimentary consultation for you. And then we can come in and answer those questions. We can figure out what your worm farm is, what's going to keep you going through retirement and make you a happy retired person. Okay. So give us a call at 719-210-4242.
All right. Thanks, Chris. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host today, Chris McKinney.
Join us again soon for another episode of Nolan Financial Radio. Take care, and we'll chat again soon.